Hello and welcome to another video. Today I will be ranking Quentin Tarantino's films from best to worst. Now this tier list has been ranked from S down to D tier, no F tier needed because Quentin Tarantino is a good director and not a shit director. Just a reminder too that these tier rankings are within the context of his own filmography. So say a C tier film for Quentin Tarantino might be a B tier film overall, okay? So these are only within the context of his own films. And yeah, so let's get into it. First film we have Reservoir Dogs. Yeah, I think this one's pretty obvious. S tier for Reservoir Dogs, one of the best feature film debuts for a director ever, I think. Reservoir Dogs is just perfection. Like, it's basically set in one location for 99% of the movie, and Quentin Tarantino just gets so much out of that one location. His writing here is on point. This is one of the best written films of all time. There are so many memorable conversations that take place in this film. It's unique. It's got his own visual style and flair. And he really just does a great job at establishing what he brings to the table as a filmmaker. One of the most enjoyable films on this list. And yeah, definitely one of his best. Next we have Pulp Fiction. Definitely the most iconic film on this list. I'm going to put Pulp Fiction in A tier. Now, straight off the bat, I know that is a very hot take. Most people would have Pulp Fiction in S tier. And I will preface this by saying that I have not seen Pulp Fiction in a very long time, and I have only seen it once. I watched this film when I was younger, when I was still in high school. Obviously, my tastes have matured and changed a lot since then. So potentially now, if I revisit it, it might be higher. It could even be lower. But Pulp Fiction is such an iconic film in film culture, and it's not hard to understand why. Like, there's so much going on with this film. It's an ensemble cast, all of the actors are great, the characters are fantastic, the story here is really cool, it's goofy, it goes in unexpected directions. Like, there's so many sequences where things just happen that you don't expect to happen. One involving a car, for example, and a gun. There's nice elements of comedy. The storytelling here is complex because things are told out of order. It's like a jigsaw puzzle trying to piece it all together. It's really, really well done and just has so many iconic moments, scenes, lines. One of the best written films of all time. It is very, very good, but for me, not quite S tier. Next we have Jackie Brown. Jackie Brown is a C tier Tarantino film for me. So Jackie Brown isn't bad. Like, it's pretty solid. It's cool seeing a female character kind of take the reins. We have Samuel L. Jackson follow up from Pulp Fiction in this film, and Robert De Niro is also in this one. This film honestly doesn't feel all that much like a Tarantino film. Like, it definitely has its moments where it feels like a Tarantino film with regards to the plot and some of the dialogue. But overall, this is like rather a subdued, muted styled Tarantino. I think the film is maybe a little too long as well. I think it could have been cut by maybe 10 to 20 minutes. And yeah, the characters here just aren't all that interesting compared to some of his others. In terms of entertainment, like, it just doesn't hold a candle to some of his other films, and that's why I've got it in C tier. Okay, next we have Kill Bill. So Quentin Tarantino considers Kill Bill to be one film split up into two parts. So because of that, I'm going to rank them both in the same tier list, even though they might not necessarily be that. I do prefer Kill Bill Volume 2 overall, so I'm going to put Kill Bill in A tier, and I will actually put Volume 2 just ahead of Volume 1, just because it was my favorite film. But yeah, Kill Bill, the ultimate revenge movie, one of the best and most enjoyable revenge movies ever made. Both volumes are fantastic. Uma Thurman absolutely kills it as one of the best female protagonists ever. I really like how they make her a badass without making her like seem just like a man or too masculine. Like, they keep her feminine traits. It's really well done. The action sequences are insane in both films. Number one in particular has probably better action sequences, but number two for me has the better story. And yeah, these films are just so entertaining. There's so many memorable scenes. The bride is such a cool character, absolutely iconic. I really, really like how this is done in like a comic book type style as well. You can tell that Tarantino took a lot of inspiration from other sources with these films. And yeah, they're just such a good time. There's nothing really bad to say about them. So Kill Bill, A tier for me. Next we have Death Proof. I'm gonna put Death Proof in D tier. So Death Proof is actually the most recent Tarantino film I have seen. It was the one film I needed to watch to complete his filmography, and I have to say I was pretty disappointed. Kurt Russell stars in this one, and there isn't really too much going on here that's overly memorable. I'm not really a fan of like the subgenre that Tarantino is playing homage to here. It's pretty generic in terms of like what unfolds. The characters are kind of lame. A lot of the conversation scenes as well are just, they're not as well written as his other films. And yeah, I'm just not a big fan of Death Proof. I think it is definitely his worst film and his most skippable film for sure. Doesn't even feel like a Tarantino film for the most part. And some people might like that it is something a little bit different, but for me personally, I wasn't really a fan. Okay, next we have Inglourious Basterds. Inglourious Basterds is a S tier film for me. I'm going to put it above Reservoir Dogs. I'm not too sure if I agree with that, but let's just roll with it. So Inglourious Basterds is a difficult film to pitch. It's a World War II film involving an ensemble cast, and there's just a lot going on. There's too much to try and break down here, but Christoph Waltz, he is someone worth talking about. His performance in this film is one of the best performances I have ever seen, and you know it's good because there's legitimately not another person on the planet that could have pulled this off. He was the only person who was fit for this role because he speaks 3 languages fluently, and he is just masterful. The opening sequence involving the hidden Jews is incredible. One of the best opening sequences in any film ever. It's so incredibly memorable and actually sets up an important plot for later in the film. The scene in the bar is also incredibly memorable, involving a mistake where a American spy holds up the wrong sign for a certain number of drinks. I can't remember what number it was. One of the best written scenes of all time. We have Brad Pitt's character and that whole subplot involving this gang of American soldiers and killing Nazis. It's funny, it's comedic, it's violent, but it's also entertaining. The ending sequence as well in the cinema is incredibly entertaining. This film is a masterpiece, and if you haven't seen it, what are you doing? Go watch this movie. One of the best and most enjoyable World War II films ever made. Following up from Inglourious Basterds, we have Django, a film that feels very similar, except it's a Western. I'm going to put Django in high A tier, just above Pulp Fiction for me. Look, Django probably isn't a better film than Pulp Fiction, but I think it's a more enjoyable film, and that's kind of where I'm going. Like, Tarantino makes films that are enjoyable, they're fun experiences, and Django is absolutely that. Christoph Waltz, again, absolutely kills it. Following up from Inglourious Basterds, no one thought he'd be able to top it, and while I don't think he tops the performance, he somewhat matches it. He is brilliant in this film. Jamie Foxx is really good as well, and we get characters that we actually care about. The action sequences here are what really stand out for me. They are incredibly gory. The end scene in particular is so incredibly well done. The characters are fantastic. Like, Leo kills it as a villain here. Samuel L. Jackson plays a really funny character as well. I really like the dark subject matter with this element of comedy mixed in. It's really well done. Tarantino at the top of his game here. Django Unchained is definitely one of his best films. Next up we have The Hateful Eight. So The Hateful Eight is a bit tricky to rank for me. I'm going to go high C tier. Look, it's very close to being B tier for me. The first hour and a half of The Hateful Eight is fantastic. Like, the opening act that kind of sets everything up is masterful. It's nice and slow. We get time with all of these characters. It builds tension. It sets up the scenario. And it's really, really well done. And then as soon as the film is meant to start getting interesting is when it takes a bit of a dip for me. I'm not really a big fan of the second half of this film. And I do think that, although it is a bit long, that the length works. But it's what he does with the second half of the film that I just didn't find overly engaging. Now, I've only seen this film once, and I would like to rewatch it to see where my opinion kind of stands now rather than, say, when it came out. The film is good, it's enjoyable, it has its moments. Like I said, I really enjoyed the first half of this film, but for me it doesn't quite live up to the rest of his filmography. It's a bit of a step down from some of them. And finally, we have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, starring Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio. I'm going to put this film in B tier. So Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is fantastic. I really like how he explored this historical setting and this historical event, but had a bit of a twist on it with a different outcome to reality. I thought that was really clever and well done. The performances here are really, really solid. Like, Brad Pitt kills it. Leonardo DiCaprio is really good. The film's funny. It's unique. Like, it has sequences that don't really follow traditional movies. There's one particular sequence where there's like a flashback that's really long and convoluted just during a conversation, and it just kind of happens in the middle. Some people might not like that, but I'm personally a really big fan of things like that. The film's maybe slightly too long, and there are some sequences that aren't as engaging as others, but what really elevates this film for me is that last 15 to 20 minutes. It is absolutely insane. When I watched this in cinemas, the cinema was howling, and I haven't really experienced that with a film before. It's so incredibly memorable, and I think it's Tarantino just having fun and doing his own thing. And look, to me, that's when Quentin Tarantino is at his best. So yeah, that is my tier list for Quentin Tarantino. What did you think? Did I have any hot takes? Were my rankings reasonably accurate? I'd love to hear your opinions and what your favorite Quentin Tarantino films are down in the comment section below. As always, thank you for watching. This has been For The Record. I'll see you in the next video.